Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as she travels the Vortex and arrive at episode 401, where she's sorting out fair play throughout the universe. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I am well.
Do you have your Swiss Army Sonics?
Yes.
That's hard to say.
I'm glad they finally called it what it is.
Yeah, I know, right? A multi-purpose tool. Did you guys have a good week?
Yeah, not bad.
Do anything fun?
Well, I was pulling up what I did this week because I had to write it down because I did so much stuff.
I finished a book.
What'd you read?
Artemis by Andy Weir.
Oh, how was it?
It was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot more of the same, but this time it's it's not. Okay, so it's a lot more of the same science. So it's a caper on the moon, but they use science to kind of solve the problems and not solve the crime, but commit the crime. So it's really enjoyable. I've seen a lot of complaints about the main character not being likable or relatable, but I was all right with her.
Did you do anything? You got a list?
I have a small list.
I have a list I'm going to blow through, so
okay.
Go ahead.
I went and saw Star is Born today.
Oh, how is that?
How is it?
I can say that Oscar season has officially arrived. It's really good. I'll be honest, I've seen the Chris Christopherson one, but it's been so long I don't even remember how it ends. So I can't really compare it. But I really enjoyed this one. I thought Bradley Cooper was fantastic.
How about Lady Gaga?
And Lady Gaga was phenomenal.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So she can act, huh?
She can act. I mean, she's playing a singer. So.
Well, yeah.
How was Venom?
Oh, yeah.
Venom, yeah. I guess I saw that too this week. Venom was a lot of fun. It's not necessarily good. Like, first of all, there's Marvel. It's not one of those. And then there's that almost Marvel. It's probably there. It's better than, say, some of the really terrible X-Men movies. Or
I kind of wondered if that was the case because I saw on Rotten Tomatoes that its critic score is 30%, but its audience scores 89. So
It got record-breaking October numbers.
Yeah,
it was a hoot. It was so much fun to watch.
Well, I like I said, I made a list because I got a lot of reading done this week. In fact, I knocked out a bunch of books. But first of all, I want to say that I started the 31 Days of Huluween Photo Challenge that the Five-ish Fangirls are doing. If you want to take part in that, be sure to go to their website, Five-ish Fangirls, or you can go to their Instagram page, and they've posted on there. Just search for the hashtag 31 Days of Huluween. Got in the spirit because, speaking of the fangirls, Brittany, I think it was, had posted on Facebook if anybody had read Bunnicula, the book. And I thought, I did a long time ago when I was a kid. Yeah. And I thought, I think I have that book around the house that we got for either Mason or Caitlin. So I went digging
from
through.
From a Scholastic Book Fair.
Yep. So I went through and I dug around and found it. And I read it in probably a couple hours. I mean, it didn't take me any time at all because it's a young reader book. It doesn't age well. At least it doesn't age well with its reader. I remember really liking it as a kid, but this time through, it's obviously aimed at a younger audience.
Right, right.
It's still cute, but I didn't remember it being as uproaringly funny as I remember when I was a kid. I just thought it was hilarious when I was a kid. I also finished, I didn't mention that I started reading it, but I had been reading over the last couple of weeks, Doctor Who and the Scales of Injustice, which is a Virgin Past Adventures book with the Third Doctor and Liz Shaw, and it's okay. It's really stuffed and bloated with a lot of fan service. Gary Russell wrote it, I believe. Yes,
that sounds right.
And it's just, it was one of the books that was reissued for the 50th.
Yeah, because I have a copy of it with
It's Silurians, and they kind of almost take a sub-story to another adversary that's introduced that I don't want to give too much away. But I think this gives the book, she's going to leave, but the book gives some closure to Liz Shaw and her and the Doctor's relationship, which I really liked. The other thing that it touches on is the Brigadier's failing marriage with Fiona, which I thought was an interesting read as well. So there was interesting points about it. It was an enjoyable story. It's a little bit cloak and dagger, James Bondish at times. It's got a really, really James Bondy villain in it, but it was good. I mean, I didn't think it was the greatest thing ever, but it really felt like, even for me as a huge Doctor Who fan, it felt very bloated with the fan service. So lots of nods and mentions to a lot of stuff. So And then I decided, well, I'm going to read Twice Upon a Time because I had bought the Kindle version of the book a while back, I think when the Target books started coming out. And I thought, I want to read that before the new series comes back. So I read it. It's really good. It's neat to have a little bit more insight. I think as the novelizations always do, they give you a little more perspective because you get to hear, you read what's inside the mind of the characters a little more. So I think that sort of helped that. And then I decided, well, I finished that book. I'm going to turn around and watch the episode. So I watched Twice Upon a Time again this weekend. And that was it.
I did read one other thing. Tarzan on the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, I saw your Goodreads post on
that. It was
that.
pretty good. It was very different, very otherworld type thing. I mean, it's set up where Cornelius and Zira and baby Milo travel back in time, and that's how Tarzan winds up in this alternate timeline, is they travel back through one of the wormhole instead of going back to the 1970s for Beneath the Planet, or Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
And so then it also sets up this other wormhole plot, and they wind up going into the future, and yeah. It's got some really weird stuff in it, but it works surprisingly. It was enjoyable as a kind of a one-off type thing. I wouldn't want it official canon, but it was a fun experiment.
Cool. So should we move on to news?
Let's. So, not a lot of news because, our show came back.
Yay.
That's the big news.
The big news is Doctor Who is on.
Is on. And with it on, we got some quick overnight figures of 8.2 million viewers, which is 40% of the total TV audience in the UK.
Which is really good.
And it is the highest, it's regular episode over 10 years.
Very good. You have to admit, some of the hype kind of helped that. So we'll see if they can hold on to that over the course of the next 12 weeks. But that's great. That's encouraging.
I wonder how much of that is hype and how much of that is moving it to Sundays.
That's what I was about to say.
It could be too.
It could be a combination.
That might
of
be
both.
something to look at to see.
If there's no high fall off next week, then we'll know it's probably a combination more Sunday than just I'm curious to see what this new female doctor's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's just good writing.
Or that too. Hopefully they stick around is what the whole idea is.
What else we got?
Well, Mattel and BBC have teamed up for a Barbie doll.
Barbie.
The first ever Doctor Who Barbie.
Very cool.
Available to order now for $50.
I think it looks pretty cool.
Really high quality
it's
Barbie.
Barbie in the 13th Doctor's clothes, pretty much.
Yeah,
With
they
her hair,
tried to
but-
kind of sculpt the face a little bit to look
it
like
still looks like
Jodie
Barbie.
Whittaker, but
I
not
think it looks
quite.
much more like Jodie than it does Barbie.
I think
looks
so,
more-
too.
It still looks like Barbie to me.
Maybe it's mainly the haircut, but it's a very cool Barbie.
The ankles look like Jodie's ankles,
The ankles do like Jodie's ankles.
don't they?
I'm so getting that doll for Sean for.
Good, that'll prevent me from having to go out and get one. Because right now the pants are preventing me from going out and getting it.
What else?
That's it. That's pretty much it.
Cool.
The rest is reaction and stuff for the new episode.
Which sounds like it was overall pretty positive.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to our review of the comic, led up somewhat to the 13th Doctor's arrival.
It was fun. Like most of the one-off stories, not much happened. They sandwiched a lot of material into a very tiny sliver of this is when this takes place, which was kind of cool.
I think a lot of things happened, but not with a lot of bloat and drawn out activity. They were all very quick little stories telling tiny adventures of all of the previous Doctors, which I really liked about it. I thought that was neat.
There were a lot of the stories that I kind of wanted more of because I was so intrigued by them.
Yes.
I kinda
And it was
felt
just
that way
little
too.
snippets of them, and it's like, that's not enough, give me more.
I kind of felt that way too, yeah.
Especially like the 5th Doctor one. I really dug that one.
I will say Paul Cornell did a really, really good job of, when you only have 3 pages of, okay, here, go. And it's like, well, he still managed to tell a fairly coherent story in those 3 pages that was compelling, and a lot of them did make me want more with it. Some of them obviously were much, much better than others. But, you're going to find that.
I think the other thing that I liked about it, I like when they're able to do multi-stories like this within one issue, is that they change up the artist for each one of them. So they all have kind of a different look. Mm-hmm. And I liked that about it as well. I thought that was neat because you have this ability to do kind of a visual change when you're switching to another Doctor, and so each one of them has its own kind of look that almost really suited each of the Doctors.
Yeah, it really struck the tone of that era.
Except for the fourth Doctor.
See, I thought that was. I don't think you could have done any other Doctor with that style of artwork.
No, I
no,
agree.
you couldn't. I just didn't like that particular style of artwork.
Oh,
I understand why
it.
they chose it for the fourth Doctor because it's kind of cartoony and.
To me, it's kind of like Clone Wars to Star Wars. I mean, Clone Wars. It's that more that less.
Or even Rebels.
Realistic, or Rebels would be good. To me, they're kind of two in the same.
It's very stylized.
Yeah, it's very stylized, and I think it worked, especially for the story they were telling as well.
With the giant chicken, I don't think it could have worked in much other.
Overall, I liked it. It was a good book. I was very, very pleased. I wish we had seen more of the 13th Doctor. On the other hand, I could understand why they couldn't do it. And it was really her recalling all of these past lives from her perspective. So,
and I like the fact that it was couched in an extended version of the monologue that 12 was giving at the end of his life.
Yeah, in a way, it almost retconning that speech and making it a little better in some ways.
Yeah. And all the callbacks he makes during that speech is fantastic too.
Yeah, agreed.
I also really thought Cornell managed to nail the voice of each Doctor without falling down on the catchphrase part of it. I mean, yes, there were
without using it as a crutch.
Right.
Yeah,
but a lot of times that's what a writer does is they go, oh, well, I threw in Geronimo, so now you hear Matt Smith, and it's like, but most of the rest of the stuff you wrote didn't work, but for this it does.
It's probably why they got Cornell to do it too, is the fact that he had just written the Target novelization, because that's who wrote the Target novelization as well. So I bet a lot of that was fresh in his head. I mean, as far as the speech goes.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're doing the comic book first because now we're going to move on to some feedback. No, we did not forget you guys, but most of you commented on the episode, so we want to make sure that we can read that ahead of your feedback.
It's just too good to be true. We can't take our eyes off of you. We shouldn't go on as such, but we love this show so much. Easter Saturday arrived, and I thank God I'm alive. I wrote this before they moved to Sunday. It's just too good to be true. A new season of Doctor Who. Pardon the way that we stare. There's nothing else to compare. We had to wait till this week. But oh, what a treat. But if you feel like we feel, please let us know that it's real. It's just too good to be true. A new season of Doctor Who. And then we're going to break it down a little bit. Let's read some feedback, and if it's quite alright, I'll read your feedback. To keep our show on track, we'll read your feedback. Trust in me when I say we'll read your feedback, because you wrote so much bloody feedback. Now just sit on back and listen to what you say about Jodie.
Very nicely done.
Who's first, Keith?
First up is Holly. I'll give your pipes a rest and
I'll let you go first.
Holly writes, "Hey guys, what an episode and an introduction to Jodie Whittaker as the new Doctor. I loved all the companions and how they interacted with each other and the Doctor. I wish Grace would have stayed around for a few more episodes. I also loved the Doctor using the technology from Tim Shaw's ship to make her sonic screwdriver. I wonder how long the Doctor will be without her TARDIS. I at first thought the blue blob looked like a Hershey's Kiss, or that looked like a Hershey's Kiss was the TARDIS, and it was in the process of regenerating itself. I'll wrap it up here. Looking forward to your thoughts on this episode. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
Next.
Up next is Kirk.
Kirk writes, let's get a shift on. Dear Vortex friends, it's the new series debut at last. My overall reaction of The Woman Who Fell to Earth is very positive. Jodie is terrific. There's no doubt that she is the Doctor. Gender just isn't a factor at all. I'm reassured that Chris Chibnall is steering the show in a strong new direction. The serious tone and character-focused stories feel good after Moffat's more glib era. Don't get me wrong, Moffat created some of my favorite Doctor Who stories, but it's time to set aside puzzle box plots and impossible girl companions for a while. Some random thoughts. I like our new friends. I wonder if the writers will follow up on the spark between Ryan and Yaz. Unfortunately, since I knew who the continuing cast was, I was expecting Grace's untimely demise. I also felt that her death was a little contrived without a lot of necessity for her heroics. The bad guy, Tim Shaw, was interesting, and not as one-note as some debut Doctor Who stories. The effects were pretty strong. I liked the tentacle monster, Tim Shaw's makeup, and the glowing button in the forest. There weren't any clunky dialogue lines or plot turns. Now that's a cliffhanger. Will cliffhangers be a thing again throughout Chibnall's run? If so, I'm on board. I watched with Elizabeth and my 10-year-old stepson Nicholas. He's become a big fan in the past few weeks. He asked to watch some Doctor Who, so I showed him The 11th Hour, The Beast Below, and Part 1 of An Unearthly Child, which, as we all know, is where you need to stop with. He's been gobbling up the BBC America Marathon, and it's clear that he's seen some episodes before. Nicholas was super into the new episode and isn't bothered one bit by a female doctor. Elizabeth liked it a lot. At the end, she's convinced that the TARDIS is visible in space just before the Doctor pops into view. I think it's likely a lens flare effect, but who knows? Who knows? I thought the pacing was a little odd, but that's hard to judge because we watched the not a simulcast on BBC America. So many commercials. I always had the impression that Moffat wrote American-style acts breaks into his scripts, which made the commercials less intrusive. Not Chibnall. BBC America is shoving commercials in, and it's more jarring than ever. This may force me into piracy and or waiting for the iTunes download. Opening credits? Any credits? I didn't see a hint of credits or a theme song on the BBC America presentation. Did other countries get something? It's as if the episode had no creative team or cast. It merely sprung a hole from Zeus's head or something. But, they needed more commercials. Without end credits, both Nicholas and Elizabeth didn't realize the episode was over. How will the season hold up? As the Doctor says, time will tell. I hope the plots and pacing are tight and that the character development remains front and center for both the TARDIS team and the guest characters. My rating, I give the new series 13 stars and 2 hearts. Only 7 more days until the next New Who. That officially makes it my favorite time of year. Kirk from Kansas City.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thanks, Kirk. Up next is Ben. Ben writes, feedback, jazz hands? Something better, Ben. Hey guys, first let me extend my sincerest apologies. I meant to send in feedback each and every week. I especially meant to send in some for your 400th episode. There are many reasons I did not. None of them excuse it. You guys entertain me each week. The least I can do is let you know that. Since my last feedback, there's been progress on my ankle. Not much as I would like, but any move forward is that much farther from its worst. Moved along, my reading progress has all but stalled. I just haven't had it in me as of late. The book I am reading, Death's End, is the conclusion to the 3-Body Problem trilogy. It's very interesting, and being as it is written by a Chinese author, it has a new take on science fiction. For some reason, though, I just haven't had the drive to read lately. Not sure why. That means I am behind on my Lethbridge Stewart reading as well. While I may not have been reading much lately, I did watch today's premiere of Doctor Who. Boy, howdy, was it good. Generally, I tend to like the first episode of each series, and then get disappointed by the rest of the series. At least that was the case during much of the Moffat era. I hope that isn't the case in the Chibnall era. For what it's worth, I don't think that will happen. The premiere episode was, in my opinion, very well written. I won't post spoilers here, not everyone is able to view it in the same time frame. I thoroughly enjoyed it, though. The characters, the story, the scenery, it was all very good. Well worth the wait. Well, I think it's time to wrap this thing up. I wanted to take a moment to thank you guys, Keith, Glenn, Sean. Thank you very much for the t-shirt. I can't wait for it to arrive. Take care and safe travels in the Vortex, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all your support over the years. And our next bit of feedback comes from Chrissy.
Chrissy writes, Dear Vortex Boys, great news. Doctor Who is on, and I have a few thoughts about the 13th Doctor's inaugural episode. Jodie Whittaker was easily the best thing about this episode. Anytime the Doctor was doing something, I was interested. In many ways, the woman who fell to Earth reminded me of the 11th hour, even down to the Doctor spending most of the time in a tattered version of her predecessor's outfit. There's manic energy, a little motivation to prove herself, and a lot of fun. The companions, and I am calling them companions, and the BBC can stuff it, show promise. Ryan had some interesting background, like why can't he ride a bike? Introducing that question early on made me want to know more about him. Even after they answered that question, his personality shone through enough by then that I liked him. Same with Yasmin and Graham, although to a lesser extent. I feel like we'll get to know them more as the season goes. And thank you, Yasmin, for saying what I thought when I saw the Doctor's new costume. That's what you're going with? At least the Doctor paid for the clothes, or had Ryan and Yasmin do it anyway. I did have one or two nitpicks. I am definitely going to need to watch these episodes with subtitles. Some of the accents are hard to understand.
That's been one of the biggest complaints.
I like that Jodie is using her northern accent. It seems like it suits her better than anything else, and I can understand her fine. Some of the others, they're a challenge. My other negative point is the Tim Shaw alien, or rather his planet's method of choosing leaders. Sending potential leaders on some sort of trophy hunt isn't the problem necessarily. It's the target they sent him after. That blubbering crane operator? Really? He's a wimp even before the alien menace shows up to catch him. You're going to prove your strength and cunning by hunting that weenie? Shouldn't you go after someone, say, like Dwayne Johnson, Chuck Norris, Idris Elba? Someone who's an actual challenge, a target that would actually impress someone. Unless Tim Shaw's people are playing a joke on him, that wasn't the most convincing choice. Though I do have to disagree with the Doctor. Wimpy Crane Dude absolutely had the right to knock Tim Shaw off the crane to his death. Self-defense is a perfectly legitimate reason. Maybe he wasn't quite the wimp after all. Overall, it was a solid episode. I give it 7 out of 10. I don't know that it's my top favorite first episode for a Doctor, but it's decent enough. It's enough that I want to stick around for more this season, and that's all it needs to do. Talk to y'all later. Chrissy.
Thank you, Chrissy. And then we also have quite a bit of comments on a Facebook post.
We did. Mike responded, I thought it was great. The Doctor is the Doctor no matter what. James said, I thought it was good. She won me over. LOL. The new companions and story was good also. Crystal wrote, amazing episode. Love this Doctor. Chris wrote, outstanding. Just the right mix of humor, curiosity, pointed commentary, and adventure. And that was just in the first 20 minutes. I am so looking forward to what this new Doctor will do, expecting great things from the season. Not fair to the new cast writers and directors, but they are off to a good start. Another Chris wrote, the Doctor sounds like Mrs. Patmore from Downton Abbey imitating David Tennant. And for me, that's a very good thing. And yes, it's hard to think of anything that isn't a spoiler. Carl wrote, I wasn't impressed with the menace, but I enjoyed the slow character building of the new Doctor. She's a tinker. Is it tinker or tinkerer?
I think it's supposed to be tinkerer.
Tinkerer. Okay. Jean wrote, thought it was great. Loved that she builds things and enjoyed the unfolding. Mark wrote, loved it, but my girlfriend thinks the TARDIS is not my TARDIS. What do you think? It's the TARDIS, not my TARDIS. What do you think? I think you can go either way with it.
Yeah.
John wrote, I really enjoyed it. And then Natalie said, so happy. So thank you guys for sending feedback and responding to our post on Facebook as well. What'd you guys think?
I got a synopsis.
Let's just go on with it. If we're going to spoil the heck out of this thing, so if people haven't seen it already, they know what it's about. Or if people have seen it already, they know what it's about.
I suppose if you're new to the show, spoiler warning about.
Yes.
Not that we haven't already spoiled a few things.
I thought it was amazing. Jodie Whittaker owned the character. She owned the title of the Doctor. She deserves the title of the Doctor. Thought she was amazing. I don't think the story was anything knocked out of the ballpark. It was a very enjoyable first episode for a Doctor. It was a lot of fun, but it also had it had a tone to it that I felt was a little different from the past, and I think that's because of Chibnall's writing. I think that's he's got a different kind of style than Moffat. I think it takes a little more serious elements while putting the humor in the right places. Yeah, the humor wasn't over the top or at the expense of our characters, which I thought was well done. I thought I liked the villain. I thought that the monster was well realized, or the bad guy was well realized. I sort of agree with Chrissy to a point that, I mean, if you're going to send the best of the best, but I also kind of in the back of my mind thought maybe he mentioned this, I thought it was just randomized.
I think so too. I think the idea is it's one person on this entire planet that he's supposed to track down, and Tim cheated.
Right. And if you picked somebody like The Rock or somebody like that, they would have been easier to find.
Pretty obvious.
So I think it's like picking a needle out of a haystack. Well, Tim was cheating because he had the cybernetic ball of tentacles, but so I was able to kind of pass that up, but I that did kind of stick in the back of my head that, wow, he's really not all that great of a trophy, but maybe he is after all, since he did shove him off the crane. I love the fact that the 13th Doctor is a tinkerer. I like the fact that she builds things, she gets her hands dirty, and she makes stuff. I think that's going to be very important, especially depending on how long it'll take her to find the TARDIS. The sonic screwdriver, I loved it. I thought it was a great way for them to explain why it looks like it does, and the reason why that the diode or the crystal in it is yellow is because it comes from the pod. There was a lot of things. The character development was really good. I felt for everybody. I felt for Alice when she fell. I mean, I think it was almost Grace. I'm sorry. Yeah, Grace, not Alice. Grace. I thought it was a little bit of a shallow heroism, though, because of where they placed it. Because the enemy was already somewhat dispatched. I'm not trying to undersell what she did, because it was heroic. It was neat to see a quote unquote companion take on something on their own. You know what I mean? There was no guidance or direction from the Doctor. The Doctor didn't dispatch that; they did. And I give what's his name? Graham as just as much credit, because it was their plan. But I think the placement of it was weird, because it was almost after the threat was over, although I guess you could argue the ball was still a threat because it was still here, and still trying to destroy the so I felt maybe the placing that was a lot of place, but again, I thought the character development was great. The development of Yaz and it's going to be Ryan was great. The little thing in the forest that he activated, I love that they called back to that, because he says, I think this is my fault, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then he explained what he'd done, and I'd remembered that. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense that he would blame himself for that. I too, like Holly, thought maybe that was the TARDIS in the cube thing, regenerating, but fixing itself. So I was actually quite pleased when it wasn't. And what else? I guess there's a whole handful of stuff. Anyway, I will go back to the fact that Jodie Whittaker is incredible, and she as the character completely knocked it out of the park.
I would agree. Jodie is phenomenal throughout all of it. The friends are fantastic. I was captivated by each and every one of them and intrigued and want to get to know them better, especially the interesting dynamic they have. And now with Grace being dead, the fact that it's Ryan and his step-grandpa, and then Yaz, who's kind of almost a romantic interest for Ryan, and the two of them seem to have that spark I kind of hope they explore. But the fact that they had so much character development was fantastic. I thought it very much it had a Broadchurch feel to it. With the pacing, I don't know. The director didn't do any Broadchurch, but I don't know if it's just part of Chibnall's writing or his visual input on the show itself as an executive producer. It felt very much pacing and look like Broadchurch, taking time to have these character moments throughout of it. And then it kind of also felt like Torchwood to me. I thought the villain felt straight out of Torchwood. That was something Captain Jack could have easily dealt with in any of his time on Earth. So I thought it was a very very interesting combination of those two things to make a new version of the show we love.
It's interesting that you go Torchwood because I genuinely feel it felt much more like an episode of Class.
It had a little bit of that too,
and not necessarily in a bad way. As a pilot, as a First Doctor episode, it does all the things that you need a First Doctor episode to do. It introduces the new companions, and it does a very, very good job of introducing them and making them compelling and interesting. It introduces the new Doctor, and does a very good job of making her interesting and compelling. We get a little bit of the regeneration sickness. We get a little bit of unconsciousness. We get a little bit of memory loss. All these things are played in there, and then you get a fairly simple starter story. There's
we're too busy getting to know the characters to worry about the menace too much.
Right, and so if anything, that for me is kind of where it would fall down. It's just that it's this one guy. I mean, there's really no threat to the universe at large. There's no threat to the planet even. Salad guy gets picked off because he picked a fight. I mean, come on. I don't understand that meme right now that everybody's championing Salad
get that
guy.
either.
He was one of those dumb characters.
It's a joke. It's not,
I know.
It's not supposed to be. You're not really championing him.
Everybody's championing Salad guy. But yeah, it's just, this would it really make a difference in the grand scheme of things if the crane guy got picked off? No, it would to him. But that, I like that builds into the Doctor's character, though.
Yeah, I think that's the importance.
This has been going on, and I'm putting a stop to it. And
not to mention, it also points to the fact that no person is insignificant.
Yeah,
and so looking at it from the perspective of, if they picked off one guy, would it be a big deal? Well, to the Doctor, yes, it would be. So
yeah, it reinforces I've never met somebody who wasn't important.
Yeah.
I agree. Jodie Whittaker pretty much owned it from the get-go. It took me just a moment, and it was more on my end, to get up to speed with her cadence and the rhythm of her speech patterns. And I feel a little cheated because for me the moment was, who are you? I'm I had it and I lost it. And I wanted that moment. I was ready for that moment. She sold me. I'm like, yeah, bring it. And then it wasn't that moment.
I'm glad they made us wait.
And it was a joke.
Made it that much more powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't feel like the one at the end really...
Oh, I do.
For me, it didn't make quite
I got chills when she finally said it because I thought, there it is.
But, like I said, it was me initially, and she was fantastic. Everything that she did in the character, there are very, very few actors in this role who I felt hit the ground running the way that, even Tennant took me 4 or 5 to warm up to. Smith was one of the ones that hit it early. I thought Capaldi did a pretty good job, but Deep Breath was kind of wonky. But, yeah, Jodie was like, okay, this is the Doctor. I do not like the new Sonic. I like the fact that it explains why it looks the way it does. They did a fantastic job with all of those little pieces of this episode, and that she's a tinkerer and going to build things. We haven't had that since Capaldi, really. Or the other Capaldi, Pertwee.
Pertwee, the other Capaldi.
It's been a while since we've really had I'm going to go do science stuff.
Yeah.
And so this was very cool. But yeah, okay, I guess you explained it, but it's not, I don't know. The little bit of alien tech that she pulled out of the ship, in my mind, still is not quite enough to make it do what it needs to do. It seems like, for being limited to 21st century Earth technology for the most part, and whatever she pulled out of that pod, it would look more like a thing that goes ding. But, okay, I'll allow it. And
she was melting all sorts of stuff and welding. And
the other thing that I liked about the fact that she built it and that she explained it was, if somebody joined the series now, I don't think they would feel like they've missed anything.
No.
She pointed out that before she arrived there, she was a gray-haired Scot. That's all the new viewer needs to know, is that she's changed her face. And then to explain the sonic screwdriver by right quickly after that saying, well, actually, it's more like a Swiss Army knife without the knife, because then that tells the...
It's more than a screwdriver.
It tells the new viewer that this is going to do more things than, put together shelves. So,
and it beefs up the Doctor's character a little bit, as opposed to having the magic ship give you the magic stick.
Yes, yes, I would agree.
It shows that she could be okay without the Sonic if something happened to it.
Right.
Either she could build a new one, or she wouldn't need to rely on the TARDIS as much.
Now, if she builds a TARDIS, then I'll have a problem.
No, she'll just grow one.
Matt Smith did.
That's true. Out of old TARDISes, but
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. If you were able to go that route, I suppose.
He built a TARDIS, I will say, too, I think it was Kirk's comment about the puzzle box nature of the old Moffat stories. I'm not 100% convinced that this is quite the one-off nature that Chibnall has led us to believe.
No, I think
wonder if we'll have the cliffhanger leading into the
I think
next.
Well, that I hope. I hope we kind of go back to like the second Doctor era.
In
Where
fact, I like that. I
think that's all it's going to be, though.
I think it will. I think that's all it will be as well. I think it will be, each of these stories will be set alone. There'll be a continuing thread as much as there is anything of they're traveling together. Obviously, they're all in this together. She's still trying to find her TARDIS. So you'll have those kind of things, but I don't think it will be the puzzle box nature of the aha moments later. I just don't feel they're going to do that.
I still think we're going to get one for one reason. We get a line where they're in the car and the doctor says,
I did key into
wait
that.
a minute,
You know each other,
You know
and
each
you know
other
each
from
other."
school, and you're related to each other. And okay, it just feels
Yeah,
like it's one of those.
I did pick
the
up on
universe
that.
has these coincidences that certain people are put in your path for certain reasons. And this is one of those.
I picked up on
We didn't
that,
touch
too.
on it because we had to get to the next stage of the adventure. But I think that's going to come back. I could be wrong. We'll find out.
No,
9 episodes from
I
now.
picked up on that too, and I kind of wondered, but at least they won't be like Moffat. It'll probably be a call back to that point. But
Yeah, no, I don't think the master is, waiting in the wings.
No,
to
no, no.
reveal this is all part of the grand plan, but I think it will come back. So,
How'd you guys feel about the TARDIS not being around?
I didn't really miss it because
you bite your tongue.
no, I really did miss it because she was very capable without it, and I think
Yeah.
if she had been completely
I don't
struggling,
know what role it would have
Yeah.
it would have even played in the story either.
And there's a lot of times that we don't see the TARDIS for the entire episode until the very end. I mean, they've done it before. I think it's become a bit of a MacGuffin, the fact that she's trying to track it down. But she's so hands-on, and she did things where she just figured out how to get around not having the TARDIS that, to me, it worked. And so I didn't miss it because there was reason not to miss it.
My only complaint of it is, from a new viewer perspective, if you'd never watched the show before, it's such a big part of it. I know it's going to play a bigger part down the road in this plot line, but as an introductory story, it's such a big part of the show in general that it felt like you could have almost watched. This could have been almost any science fiction show.
Yeah, well, that is exactly why I think it was important to do it for new viewers, is not to throw too much at the new viewer right away.
And that could be what they're doing.
And I think what it will do it will give everybody, the companions, quote unquote companions, because I'm like Chrissy, I'm going to call them companions, I don't care, and new viewers alike, that aha moment of introducing them to the TARDIS, and
That's what
they
this
all
big
get it
deal of
together,
this
and I
thing
think
is.
that works really well.
Well, even in Rose, we didn't get a TARDIS moment until the end of the
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
That's
it
true.
was there. It was present, but because the whole thing's from the companion's point of view,
Yeah.
she didn't see it until the end. So I think with everything else that new doctor, female, blah blah blah. Okay, we're going to go ahead and save that for later. I do think that somewhat surprisingly, this was handled far better than Deep Breath in the regards of not hitting us over the head with, the doctor has changed and I need to be accepting of it. They just, boom, done,
It was
moved on.
barely a reference.
Yeah,
There was
barely
really like
even
2
mentioned.
references to the fact that there was even a change of gender.
I very much enjoyed the flying spaghetti monster. I thought that was cool, both how it was visualized and what it did.
And what it was when they shocked it and it fell kind of apart,
Yeah.
and she explained what it was.
Yeah. Having
Both
an
organic and
explanation was very cool.
cybernetic.
And there was one other thing that I wanted to touch on, and now I don't remember. So
I like what I heard of the new theme tune too.
Yeah, let's
I can't wait
talk
to
about that.
I can't wait to see the actual theme tune.
There was no opening credits, right?
No.
Just the closing credits.
Just the closing
Okay.
credits. Because we didn't get the title card of the episode until
No.
the end.
Oh, that's right. Okay, and then because we saw the little BBC thing that we see at the very beginning to
Right.
the ident.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
The hints of the theme music when the doctor falls through though and stands up. was fantastic.
Yes,
I love
yes,
that little bit.
That was cool.
I actually enjoyed the music throughout the whole episode.
I didn't notice it.
Yeah. I think that was a good change. I'm going to miss Murray Gold, but I liked the fact that the theme was a little darker, a little more understated, and not quite as bombastic as it has been for the last.
I noticed it because it had an absence of Murray Gold.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It worked really well for this episode, but I only noticed it because of the absence of Murray Gold. I expect those beats of music within certain points, and they were there, but they were different, and so I appreciated that and liked it.
Yeah, the credits and no Vortex scene, that was jarring. Because you know me, I need my... There's the TARDIS in the Vortex, this is still my show. And I didn't get it. And there's no TARDIS, and it's missing somewhere. That's kind of the other weird thing, that's what I want to touch on. The TARDIS is missing, and for the first time, I've talked about this before, where something catastrophic happens to the TARDIS, and the Doctor's like, I'll pick it up later. This time, something catastrophic has happened to the TARDIS, and the Doctor is legit concerned.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's at. Now I'm really worried.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how you can be like, it doesn't matter. Because I'm going out of my gourd.
Because
like, what?
Because they told me in all the pre-production stuff that she was going to have a TARDIS, so I'm not worried. It's coming
It
eventually.
was in the initial picture.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, but I expect that.
Anything else you guys want to talk about this first episode? I think they are off to a great start. All the acting, all of the writing, all of the direction, all of the tone, and Jodie Whittaker especially is now the Doctor, and I love it.
Yeah. And I liked how she just went and bought an outfit.
Yes.
It was nothing special, no extra super plot point to it. Or
Why that?
Felt a little like 11th Hour, where she was in the previous Doctor's outfit for the entire show. Almost entire.
But I like the fact that it wasn't an exact mirror of 11th Hour, where she changes for the big climactic.
Right, exactly.
It was an afterthought of, you might want to change that
She was
outfit.
still in
And the
the
fact
show.
that she had never even thought about changing clothes.
She just kind of looks down and, oh yeah.
Even though she lost the jacket quite a bit because she had just the vest on, which looks pretty good.
I think she took the vest off, especially for the funeral. So.
Yeah, the tattered jacket does not work for the
That was
funeral.
actually kind of an interesting bit, is seeing the Doctor dealing with the aftermath of an adventure. We don't normally get that, because normally it's pop back in the TARDIS and get out of Dodge before anything happens. And watching her pace and fret and just, just ants crawling on her almost, because she didn't know what to do with herself at this moment. This is probably uncomfortable that there's this expression of grief, and she does feel for it, but at the same time, this is why I don't stick around for these things, because it's here. But she couldn't go. I thought that was a really interesting way to do it. I will say this about the outfit, and I will leave it alone. I like the fact that once she went back into the tinkering mode with the goggles and everything, that she had the sleeves of the jacket rolled up.
Yeah,
that to me is the first thing I would do. I tend to roll up my sleeves and get to work and do something, and so I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I agree.
I still hate the pants.
All right, Sean, what do we got coming up on the schedule? This ought to be easy.
Well, next week, next episode. Although Chibnall's making it difficult because they still haven't really released a synopsis or listing of episode titles, but I think
beyond next week.
Beyond next week.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what
the
next
Ghost
is.
Monument.
The Ghost Monument, thank you. So we will be covering episode 2, The Ghost Monument, next week on our show. As always, your feedback is welcome. Keith, how do they send that to
You can
us?
send that directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com, or if you're on our Facebook and you see a post from us, you can click through and click the send us an email, and it will send that directly to feedback. Or on our website, just fill out the send us feedback tab.
And you guys were fantastic, because I put a little thing in there about, hey, no spoilers, and you guys didn't. So
Good job,
just
guys.
keep that in mind, that if you're engaging with us on social media, that other people may not have gotten a chance to see it.
Spoilers will abound here, though.
But on the show, fair game.
All right, well, if that's going to do it for this time, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.